Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming. That's it. Day two is over. But not to worry. I'm going to make sure you get 10 more minutes of CPE credits. So hang tight for a second. My name's John Yeoh. Thanks again for coming, right? This is the CSA AI Q4 Summit for 2025. Man, we're doing a lot of these things, and I can't wait to share at least my perspectives on what we experienced the last couple of days. So, as usual, I think I always try to categorize the sessions and understand, like, hey, what were our main takeaways? Not just one by one, but were there themes that came out of this? I want to do things a little bit differently. So, I actually wrote down 4 topics that I was hoping to get before the 2 days started. So, what did I want to see out of the last couple of days? I was hoping to, hey, let's get some lessons learned, challenges when it comes to adopting AI, generative AI agents. Very broad, so I'm sure this will be applying to a lot of the talks and a lot of the sessions that we experienced the last 2 days. But I also wanted to see something like, the configurations of agents. That's always a top threat, a top concern that we have with cloud was the misconfigurations that we had with cloud services. And I saw something similar with agents. So as agents move in and out of our environments, as they interact with each other, how are people managing those configurations? And is that a challenge? Are we going to hear a lot about that? I was hoping to. And there's a couple there. So uh, we'll talk about this in a little bit. I also wanted to see the AI's impact on cyber insurance. What's going on with risk economics? If people are really advanced in using AI, is that looked at like, hey, we're skydiving here, so we're really high risk? If we have a chance to demonstrate governance and reduce that risk somehow, is that going to help us with our cyber insurance policies? I was hoping to get something out of that too, and there's a little bit of touching on that. The last thing I was hoping for too, and maybe it was a little bit out of scope for what we were going to talk about, was energy consumption and sustainability. Not only are we ramping up the use of AI, but we're seeing more people, more companies also use AI. This has a huge impact on the data centers, the GPUs, and I thought maybe we get a chance to talk a little bit about that or hear somebody talk about that. And so these are the 4 things that I was coming into that I earmarked. I'm like, hey, let's see, what we're going to hear about from these 4 topics. And so I did go ahead and slip what I thought I heard into these categories. So lessons learned. Diana Kelly, pretty obvious. She broke down an actual real world critical vulnerability. So super fitting here. Diana Kelly broke down. I mean, this is a great example of a real world lessons learned breaking down Force Leak. Josh Woodruff, he talked about the zero trust challenges. Can zero trust apply to AI? Can AI help with with the zero trust implementation? And yes, check out a session. I thought that was kind of fitting here too. Lessons learned. Yeah, again, I know a lot of them can fit into this session, but I liked how Josh talked about zero trust here. And I was on a session with Arpa the Jazz and Mark over at Marvell, and we talked about the AI controls matrix. And this was, hey, this was definitely lessons learned as we were talking about the challenges from going from cloud to AI. And interesting how getting a perspective on how the AI framework needs to be separate right now. Eventually it'll be looked at as an entire approach of how we secure and govern our entire ecosystem. But right now, we needed to see how AI as a separate framework, as a separate approach. Configuration of agents versus cloud. Snega over at Wiz touched on this, which is fitting. Being that Wiz as a CSPM, but she did go into misconfiguration challenges and tied that into the AI pipeline. So I loved how, from a data security perspective to AI security, I thought she really hit on this. Colin over at Dabble talked about MCPs, model context protocols, and he really dove into how are things going to interact with each other. So there was like, I thought there was some configuration there, like, hey, how do we see agents interacting with each other? MCPs was a big part of that too. So we did see some of that configuration, some of those layers that were tied into that. The AIUC panel. So if you're not familiar with the AI underwriting company, yeah, they were talking about the standards of AI. So how are we standardizing AI? I think kind of fit here, right? With configuring AI and there's certainly a lot of technical standards that they were testing on cloud and AI. So I think this was a fit here. And Jim Rivas, the CEO over at CSA, he talked about just securing the agentic control plane. What are the layers of that architecture? I thought when you look at his presentation, you can kind of see all the different layers that go into AI and where you need to configure these pieces. And so to me, it fit right into this category. AI's impact on cyber insurance and risk economics. There was a little bit of a touch here, and I know Ward, when he talked about securing the AI supply chain, he actually touched on cyber insurance here. He talked about the supply chain accountability. So that one I think hit really well here. Vinay over at Zendesk, he incorporated governance and transparency, and so I think how are they building maturity and trust into their environment over at Zendesk? I thought this fit. And we had the panel called CSA Ambassadors, Rich Mogul, Jim Rivas, and others were on it, but it talked about communication to the board and how do you communicate influence and apply risk and translate that risk to the board. So my last topic that I hope to see was on energy consumption sustainability, and that was a tough one. David Bao over at Northeastern, he touched on large language models and inference, and there was a lot of model interpretability here. I think there was an indirect, really touch point that he mentioned on in energy usage, especially if you look at the architecture in these large models. And so, the more efficient we are with the models, the more efficient we can be with the inference itself. And so, I was thinking, how are we, we're talking about making more efficient AI models, not just from a hardware perspective, but David really touched on how to do it from an architecture perspective. So I thought super fitting. So that was my expectations going into this. I wanted to share that. This is an AI conference. It makes sense to also like push all of this into a generative AI model and see how it interprets it for us. And so I thought we'd add that a little bit there too. So what did our AI, how did it categorize all the sessions that we saw? Here, building trust and governance and AI adoption. So if you look at what Vinay talked about, the AI controls matrix presentation, translating or helping the board understand AI risk, and then Ward's talk on AI supply chain. Yeah, that's good. These are lessons learned from implementation, AI governance maturity, and board accountability. So that was a good topic. It also said that, hey, we learned a lot about securing the agentic future. And if you look at Jim talking about the AI, the agentic control plane, the AIUC folks talking about standardizing AI agents, Collins MCP talk, Josh talking about agentic hype with zero trust reality, and Diana talking specifically about the vulnerabilities that she experienced with deploying AI agents. AI, you did it again. That's a great category. And another takeaway was understanding AI's expanding threat surface. So you saw Chris Porter talk about the offensive and defensive balance. A repeat here, but Diana's talk on Force League, that was certainly an a critical AI vulnerability that she talked about. And then Snag over at Wiz talking about just the exposure that they saw with the misconfigurations on data and the AI pipeline. So that was a great category that we were given. I think this is the final category that our generative AI gave us on research transparent infrastructure. So again, David Bao talking about large language models and inference. Yeah, maybe there's a missing sustainability dialogue here that it's talking about, but these were the categories that generative AI gave us. Thanks for that. It also called us out here too. So what are the gaps and not the opportunities for next time? Let's see if we can find to hear from you and find out more about energy consumption and sustainability, especially for the AI infrastructure, economic and insurability implications of AI risk. And this is a good one too, the human skill development and workforce transformation. Those are things that maybe we kind of missed a little bit over the last 2 days, and it's something to look forward to and maybe put together next time. So thank you to our generative AI tools for giving this out. I want to thank everybody again for joining, though I think we learned a whole lot these last couple days, and I can't wait to not just learn more from the speakers, but there was a lot of great conversation through chat, and so the engagements happened not just today on the sessions that we have, but CSA has great social media with LinkedIn. We do a lot on YouTube, And most importantly, we have working groups that work so hard to generate guidance and tools for all of us. So if you haven't done that yet, join the CSA working group. You can find it at cloudsecurityalliance.org. Remember, we're a non for profit, so we lean heavily on the community, not just to identify what we need, but also to come up with solutions. And we're really good at bringing people together and packaging it all up so that we can really, you know, uh, trailblaze and find a path together. So I want to thank you again. My name is John Yo. Hey, don't forget to check out the sessions if you missed them. And I think with that, we got all your CPE credits. Uh, all right. We'll see you next time. Thanks again.